Hey everybody, I wanted to share some thoughts I was having this morning. I was watching a video on YouTube. Um, I'll put the name of the guy in the description, talking about a principle used to help change your reality. Um, and essentially it's called the mirror principle. And he had brought up this concept of I'll let you guys go find out what the mirror principle is, but what I wanted to do was actually talk a little bit about how you can use your mind and shift to your advantage, and some of the more direct interplay. Right? He taught you the principle. I want to teach you some exercises that utilize the principle and expand on the principle. So, in the video, we're talking about a reflection process and how if you don't see yourself as somebody who's going to succeed, or if you're constantly viewing in your mind that you're someone who is failing or suffering or constantly encountering walls to break through and everything's a struggle and that you're just going to stay stuck where you are, essentially what he's saying is that if that's constantly your vision, if that's constantly what's on your mind, that is going to be projected in your reality. That's going to be what the reality reflects back onto you. Now, this principle, I wholeheartedly agree with it. I wholeheartedly believe that it is absolutely true, and it is a secret little thing about the mind that most people don't get taught at a very early age, when it would be very essential and crucial to developing your self-image and developing lifelong success. And then in addition to that, what people typically will do, what their minds are programmed to do, is say that, well, that can't be me. Well, that can't necessarily go, that's going to go against what I know. And that principle can't necessarily come and help me because I'm just not built like that. That's just not what I do, or I'm not good enough, or it comes up with a lot of excuses, right? But one thing I want to point out, he used this metaphor, well, not a metaphor, but an example of someone trying to become a billionaire who is already a 999 millionaire is going to have an easier time stepping into that billionaire role because they have more of an idea of what it looks like. Now, something that I want to talk about and what I want to touch on is that you actually have a huge advantage as someone who's not a millionaire or not a billionaire, because you don't know the successes or the failures necessary of a millionaire or a billionaire, right? But what you do know and what you are familiar with is everything that you currently do, everything that has not led you to be a millionaire. And honestly, I don't like to use the money reference because life's not about money. But if it's easy enough to think about it that way, if you're trying to become wealthy and you're trying to obtain this richness, or anything really that you're pursuing and that you feel distanced from, is actually a huge advantage, because you know everything that you're doing right now is not helping. So something that I did, and that I put in the comments on that video as well, is that you can try every day, wake up and do something different. Just do something different. If you're in a rut, or if you're unsuccessful or unhappy, do something to break the cycle. Do something to break your habits. I wrote a paper in high school on redundancy. It's one of the most killer behaviors and concepts that people attach themselves to in their life. They get really hung up on being comfortable and doing the same thing every day so that they can master those habits and those patterns, but they don't yet know if those habits or patterns are actually what's going to drive them towards success. They're just looking on being comfortable, looking to be comfortable. And that redundancy is preventing you from developing new knowledge that can take you different ways. So there's also this, typically when you do new things, there comes this critical point, and in the video he's mentioning it. In the video he mentions a time delay, right? So you've worked up this image, you've worked up this vision, and you have all these ideas potentially that you want to implement, and you're really putting in the work, things are starting to go your way, but then there comes a critical point. There comes a critical point, and as soon as you start to let go and start to give up on what you think you can change and what you believe you will impact in your life, your reality starts to reflect that actually is true. And it's a very sensitive thing. I think you should go and watch the video. He'll give you a good idea of the fundamental principle of it. But what I want to recommend to everybody is that when you have a critical decision to make, when you have a moment that you can take a step in the right direction, and there's just this weight, there's just this, nagging sense in your mind is telling you, maybe your gut is even yelling at you like, this isn't right, this isn't what I should be doing, this feels bad and I'm not made for this, I can't do those things. Those are critical moments. Now, those are extreme, but typically how it works is in a much more subtle way. And I actually have an example of this in creating this video. I had just stepped out of the shower, and I had all these ideas going in my mind on the video that I would like to say. After I had written the comment, I was filled with a ton of other ideas that I would love to share. And my mind was like, well, Ryan, you need to go to work, or you need to start your day. But really, like, when I look at the values that I have and the reason that I've found my purpose in life is that I'm going to share these ideas with you, and I really want to lean into that, right? So in that moment, I have the choice. Either I can lean into that and I can share this with you, right on faith, that's going to be okay if I'm a little bit late to work, or just give up and not give you this message at all. And then, what's the next thing? Oh, well, you're standing in the bathroom, and I got my pajamas to wear. I'm like, am I gonna go like make a video in my pajamas? And my mind tried to correlate that with just not making the video. Instead, what I did, and this is just a practical example, instead you have to reinforce to your mind that you are the captain, that you are indeed the lead and the authority in this relationship with reality. And I'm not going to stop, whether I wanted to do it in my pajamas or not, that wouldn't stop me from making the video. But what I did decide to do, just to put it to bed, was to go put on some nice pants, a nice sweater that I just got from Christmas, and come in here, the bathroom, where I was having this, I was simultaneously having these very positive thoughts, and then facing a little bit of this devilish thought, a little bit of this, oh, don't build off of that, don't take that anywhere where you could do something with it, and set an example for not even my mind, but for me. Set an example for myself. And this is what I want you to do. When it comes to those critical points, when it comes to those, and you'll get better at recognizing them, but your mind is always talking or chattering or moving in one direction or another, or proposing that you move in one direction or another. And when the mind is telling you to go towards something that you have deliberately told yourself either not to, or that you deliberately want to do, something that you think you should do and would benefit you and breaks your habits, breaks your cycles, and moves you towards something that is good for you, and it tries to hold you back, that is the most critical moment. I wrote this in the comment as well. That is the most critical moment when you can make a difference. And what I would like to also convey to you, and this is beautiful the way that it works. When the mind suggests to you the possibility that this might not be right for you, it's an indication. I want you to look at it as an indication that you have already won. Okay? Not a final decision or determination, but an indication that you have already won. Because the mind is proposing to you whether or not to stop believing what it currently believes on a subconscious level or quantum level. It's proposing to you, is this really truth? Is this really what we believe? And that's when you must stand up as the authority, recognize that you are the authority in your life. That is something I cannot say enough. And even if you don't believe it, even if you're not sure, the best thing you can do is just say that I can. Every time your mind tries to tell you I can't, and it goes in opposition to what you want or what you would like to will into your life, tell yourself that you can, because I'm telling you, it is a fact that the mind bends to the will. It is a fact. The mind bends to the will. And now it might not necessarily look like what you think it's going to look like, but most likely that's because you haven't experienced it before. You haven't done it before. And in addition to that, most of the things that you can envision in your mind are coming from this mind that is wrought with all of these thoughts that are keeping you in this state of comfort, in this state of, and it's interesting that it is this state of comfort purely due to the fact that it's familiar. It's not a state of comfort because you're comfortable in it, or that it makes you feel good, or that you're relaxed, or anything like that, but the fact that it's familiar, it's predictable. The mind loves predictability, it loves patterns, it loves to see things working as it should be. But you have the responsibility and the authority to determine to yourself what should be. Okay? And that is that's essentially all I got for you. Just quickly to make another example, when I did actually get these clothes on, came back into the bathroom, I did it in the bathroom for a purpose. I did it in the bathroom to show my subconscious mind that I won, right? And that even when you're in a place where these negative thoughts happen, it's essential in places where negative thoughts happen to redefine that space to you, right? That's a similar principle to exposure therapy. Your mind is always going to bend to the will, and it's constantly, whether science knows it yet or not, your mind is always plastic. You always have neuroplasticity. You can develop new neural connections and learn. That is what learning is. Anytime in your entire life, as long as you breathe. All right? As long as you're breathing, as long as your brain's sending electrical signals, you can learn. Okay? So I got back in here, and I'm looking for a place to set up the camera, and now this is like the critical point. I'm like, my mind is trying to say, well, you can't do it in the bathroom because it's not going to be good enough. How, and that just shows, I guess it gives some insight into the type of battle that I have with my mind. It's nitpicky. It's trying to emphasize tiny things that really at the end of the day don't matter. What matters is that I stand here in front of you and share this message, not what it looks like or how I feel about it, because that's just ego. That's all ego. It doesn't matter. So this principle, I don't want to just have these examples of this current moment because it's a rather low pressure environment. But to share something personal with you, I was actually facing, and still currently am facing, issues with my liver. And it came from a negative habit, a really bad practice in college of drinking excessively, smoking excessively, whether it be marijuana or cigarettes, and I was in a very bad space, treating my body like a machine that is just meant to give me free dopamine and make me feel good. And what happened was my liver has had difficulty processing all the toxins that I put into my body. And so something I had to do to step in the right direction from that was to, and aside from cigarettes, also vapes, something I had to do was stop ingesting all of those things. Graduated from college, it's time to change. I'm not around those negative influences, and being around negative influences, while it is, I don't even want to say that it's more likely that you'll do it, because ultimately it still comes down to your authority. It still comes down to your choice. I had poor decision making in that time period where I went lax on myself. I had never seen myself doing those things in my future. I never, not to the extent, obviously I thought maybe, I'd try it. But then it became a habit, it became a regular kind of routine thing. And that's when it gets dangerous, and that's when you need to reestablish your authority. And so I've actually used this principle and the fact that when you have that most critical urge, that most, like when you just feel like you have to do it, when you feel like, just one, or just a sip, or just a hit, sometimes it can hurt, but it's all up here, man. There is, to some level, biochemical research that suggests physical dependency on opioids. Thankfully, I never got in touch with those. But the reality of it is that you can, that critical point when you most want to take a step back, and when you want to fall back to those old habits that are keeping you stuck and hurting you and doing you disservice because they're familiar, that's the moment when you create the new neural connection that I can make it past this feeling of craving without actually submitting to what my mind wants, without actually submitting yourself to the negativity, and to the thing that's hurting you. You don't need to continue suffering in that manner. I think everybody, no matter what stage of life they're in, is going to be familiar with suffering. It's something that is sort of programmed into our minds, right? But it's really not, it's not as, struggling to find the word here, but suffering is a perception more than it is a reality. Because there's always going to be someone who has it worse than you, generally speaking. There's going to be someone who has it worse than you all the way till you're dead, right? All the way till dead. Somebody's going to have it worse than you, but that's why it's a perception. A lot of people who are close to their deathbed are actually quite content, and they've actually come to terms with their suffering. And I'll make a different video on this, but I wanted to put this out here for everybody today. I hope it was helpful. I hope you take the steps in your life. I hope and pray that you learn to discern when these critical moments are occurring, and give yourself the trust, the free will to just try, to just try, and tell yourself in that moment when you think you can't, tell yourself I can. You don't have to believe it, you will believe it, but tell yourself that you can, and then move in that direction. Just do something that gets you to glance off of that path, right? You can't go all the way to it. You got to get real close and then swerve away, right? Whether it looks pretty or not, I'm not judging. I'm not judging. You know, ballerinas can't spin on their toes the first day that they show up to the studio, right? So maybe you look a little awkward. Maybe it's not exactly the outcome that you're looking for in your mind, but it's, again, using what you know doesn't work to your advantage. Use what you know doesn't work, which is probably what you're currently doing, and take a step in a different direction. Do something that you have not done. All right? It could be going to the store at a different time of day. It could be going go-karting if you've never gone go-karting. Go to the movies if the last time you enjoyed yourself you went to the movies. Something very simple. Try yoga if you've never tried yoga. Go to the gym if you haven't been in the gym. That's all I got. Really simple, little things will make a big difference along the way. I love and bless you all. Hope you take care and be well.